Ladies and gentlemen, hundreds of DOJ officials, employees, attorneys either resigned or were forced out because of the following paradigm shift from Harmeet, Dhillon, top official of the DOJ, and President Trump's administration. Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge.
Our constitutional duty is to protect the right to vote for all Americans. 60 years ago, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to confront the brutal reality that too many Americans were being denied their rightful access to the ballot. The Voting Rights Act came at a critical time in our nation's history and was the catalyst of necessary change. This landmark law removed barriers to voting. It outlawed poll taxes and literacy tests and gave the federal government the tools to stop discriminatory barriers at the ballot box. Today, under the leadership of President Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi, this Civil Rights Division is continuing to protect equal and transparent ballot access with vigilance and resolve. We are investigating violations of federal voting laws. We're ensuring that all 50 states have and continue to have clean voter rolls. We are challenging efforts to suppress or dilute the vote. We are attacking illegal race-based gerrymandering, and we are protecting ballot access for all Americans. We have sued jurisdictions such as North Carolina for not registering voters properly by first verifying their eligibility. We have notified Texas of grave concerns about congressional districts drawn with racial motivations, and we are suing other jurisdictions where there is evidence of ineligible voters on their voter rolls. Our job is to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. On this anniversary, we honor the Voting Rights Act, not just by remembering it, but by enforcing it for all Americans. And that's my promise to you.
So why would Democrats want to hide voter rolls from the federal government? Okay, maybe it has to do with how Biden became president. Biden won more support, more votes than any president in U.S. history. He was technically more popular than President Obama. Does that make sense to anybody? To a lifelong Democrat who despises Trump, does it make sense to you that Joe Biden was more popular than President Obama? In less than 4 years, he was kicked out of re-election by George Clooney, who wrote an op-ed, and Democrats and media that said he can't run again. He can't run in 24 after having won his primary. So they cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. The DNC emails forced Debbie Wasserman Schultz to resign. They cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. They cheated Biden in 2024. Then they pontificate about the sanctity of results. How did Biden lose all of that political capital? That ties in directly to what the Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dhillon and Republicans and Trump, what they're trying to do in ensuring that voting rolls and that the results of a presidential or a contest for senator or congressperson, that the results are actually legitimate and that voting rolls are clean and they're only filled with people who can vote, citizens. Okay. There is a reason that Biden lost all of that political capital. It has nothing to do with one debate. It is a completely absurd belief that Biden was the most popular candidate of all time and then lost all of that political capital in less than 4 years. Even if he had complete cognitive issues where he couldn't articulate his thoughts, you still wouldn't see a complete and utter erosion of political capital in less than 4 years from somebody who had such a dominant or such overwhelming support less than 4 years prior. Okay, if Biden, my point in a roundabout way, if Biden had actually defeated Trump in a pristine, legitimate manner, and he legitimately received all of that support, that political capital, and all of those votes, and all of that overwhelming praise, support, political capital, how on earth did he lose all of that? Where even George Clooney wrote an op-ed stating he should bow out of the 2024 contest. It's not possible to lose all of that political capital. The question then is, did he have that political capital to begin with? Anyway, let's continue. This is Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dhillon explaining very likely why all these career officials of the DOJ just resigned or were forced out.
Get to three questions. The first is about your priorities. Second one's about rebranding of DEI that we're starting to see, and then how you see it in the corporate sector as well. So I want to give you an additional opportunity.
By the way, if Democrats believe DEI is important, then turn it into law. Yet again, they don't want to defund ICE, but they want to vilify the agents. They pontificate about DEI, then turn it into law. Run on legislation that would not make it an organizational framework, but legislation. Democrats don't want to do that. I wonder why.
Opportunities for amplify. How are you with this mission of ending racial discrimination? What are sort of your priorities across the sectors and making sure our civil rights laws are applied to protect individual rights?
Well, thank you for the question, Senator. It's a big job because, as you pointed out in your opening remarks, discrimination in the guise of DEI has permeated every level of our society. And so we are taking our guidance from the priorities of this administration and the obvious violations that are occurring, coupled with recent Supreme Court precedents that make our obligations clear. So with Students for Fair Admissions setting the way and making clear that the types of discrimination that our universities have engaged in for decades is illegal, that is a key focus because there are billions and billions of dollars. Some universities that we're investigating themselves receive over $1 billion a year in federal funding. And so our responsibility toward the taxpayers requires us to focus on those big ticket items, but we are also looking at offenders up and down the spectrum. In the employment field, similarly, you mentioned that there's a lot of discrimination happening in the big American corporations, but we're also seeing it throughout state and local governments. And again, we feel it is important for the economy and for the civil rights enforcement priorities to pursue those violations wherever we find them. And then, of course, I have a large portfolio beyond the DEI issues, and so we do our best with the various resources that we have.
You got a busy job. I want to sort of the DEI now. I think the public has been educated to a much larger degree than it was, say, 5 years ago about what that really means beyond just sort of flowery language. But there is an effort now with some of these DEI programs to kind of use other vague terms to cloak the very divisive and discriminatory policies, whether it's community and belonging initiatives, and they relocate their staff in other ways that aren't called DEI officers anymore. What are you doing, or how are you identifying this, and then how would you approach addressing that as well? Because it's the same thing.
Well, Senator, when I hear the words or the slogan DEI, what I hear is discrimination, exclusion, and intolerance. And that's what we're seeing throughout all of these programs nationally. Now, we are relying on the public and whistleblowers throughout these organizations to let us know when this type of fake rebranding is occurring, and yet the same personnel and the same policies are continuing to perpetuate illegal discrimination on American citizens. And we are taking action. We are opening up investigations. Sometimes simply opening an investigation results in the individuals who are blatantly flouting our federal civil rights laws being terminated or reassigned or otherwise. And so we are seeing these actions take place throughout the United States. And I'm pleased to say that in response to several of the letters that I sent to open up federal civil rights investigations, many schools are stepping forward and voluntarily providing us with the data requested and showing that indeed they are honoring and following Students for Fair Admissions and other federal civil rights laws.
So as your division, your department gets back to sort of enforcing the plain language of the statute, there are also violations that exist in the corporate world, whether it's edicts from CEOs or the boardrooms or HR lawyers that are seeking to discriminate by another term. What are you guys doing? Are you relying on whistleblowers there? What can you share with us about how you're taking? I mean, this is predominant in big law. I mean, they don't even try to hide it. But what are you doing to identify that and pursue those as well?
Well, Senator, the primary jurisdiction for private employment violations rests with the EEOC, and I have almost daily conversations with the chair there. Many of those investigations are confidential, and unfortunately, I cannot share details.
So discrimination is horrible and terrible. So are voter rolls that are hidden from the federal government for potentially nefarious reasons. Anyway, hit subscribe. This is huge. Be here for the live stream tonight. Thank you.